During the summer of 2003, events in the northeastern United States involving a strange human-like creature sparked brief local media interest before an apparent blackout was enacted. Little or no information was left intact, as most online and written accounts of the creature were mysteriously destroyed. Primarily focused in the rural New York State, self-proclaimed witnesses told their stories of their encounters with the creature of unknown origin. Emotions ranged from extremely traumatic levels of fright and discomfort to an almost childlike sense of playfulness and curiosity. While their published versions are no longer on record, the memories remain powerful. Several of the involved parties began looking for answers that year. In early 2006, the collaboration had accumulated nearly 2 dozen documents dating between the 12th century and present day, spanning 4 continents. In almost all cases, the stories were identical. I've been in contact with a member of the group and was able to get some excerpts from the upcoming book. The Rake, Suicide Note, 1964. As I prepare to take my life, I feel it necessary to assuage the guilt and pain I have introduced through the act. It is not the fault of anyone other than him. For once I awoke and felt his presence, and once I awoke and saw his form. Once again I awoke and heard his voice, and I looked into his eyes. I cannot sleep without fear of what I might next awake to experience. I can never wake. Goodbye. Found in the same wooden box were 2 empty envelopes addressed to William and Rose, and loose personal letter with no envelope. Strange. Dearest Lenny, I have prayed for you. He spoke your name. Journal entry, translated from Spanish, 1880. I have experienced the greatest terror. I have experienced the greatest terror. I have experienced the greatest terror. I see his eyes when I close mine. They are hollow, black. They saw me and pierced me, his wet hand. I will not sleep, his voice. Unreadable text. Mariner's log, 1691. He came to me in my sleep. From the foot of my bed, I felt a sensation. He took everything. We must return to England. We shall not return here again at the request of the Rake. From a witness, 2006. 3 years ago, I had returned from a trip from Niagara Falls with my family on the 4th of July. We were all very exhausted after a long day of driving, so my husband and I put the kids right to bed and called it a night. At about 4 a.m., I woke up thinking my husband had gotten up to use the restroom. I used this moment to steal back the sheets, only to wake him up in the process. I apologized and told him I thought he got out of bed. When he turned to face me, he gasped and pulled his feet up from the end of the bed so quickly he almost knocked me out of the bed. He grabbed me and said nothing. After adjusting to the dark for half a second, I was able to see what caused the strange reaction. At the foot of the bed, sitting facing away from us, there was what appeared to be a naked man, or a large hairless dog of some sort. Its body position was disturbing and unnatural, as if it had been hit by a car or something. For some reason, I was not instantly frightened by it, but more concerned as to its condition. At this point, I was somewhat under assumption that we were supposed to help him. My husband was peering over his arm and knee and tucked into a fetal position, occasionally glancing over me before returning to the creature. In a flurry of motion, the creature scrambled across the side of the bed and then crawled quickly in a flaring sort of motion right along the bed until it was less than a foot from my husband's face. The creature was completely silent for about 30 seconds, or probably closer to 5. It just seemed like a while. Just looking at my husband. The creature then placed his hand on his knee and ran into the hallway leading to the kids' rooms. He screamed and ran for the light switch, planning to stop him before he hurt my children. When I got to the hallway, the light from the bedroom was enough to see it crouching and hunched over about 20 feet away. He turned around and looked directly at me, covered in blood. I flipped the switch on and saw my daughter, Clara. The creature ran down the stairs while my husband and I rushed out to help our daughter. She was very badly injured and spoke only once more in her short life. She said, "He is the Rake." My husband drove his car into the lake that night while rushing my daughter to the hospital. He did not survive. Being in a small town, news got around pretty quickly. The police were helpful at first, but then local newspaper took interest as well. However, the story was not published, and local television never followed it up either. For several months, my son Justin and I stayed in a hotel at my parents' house after we decided to return home. I began looking for answers myself. I eventually located the man in the next town over who had a similar story. We got in contact and began talking about our experiences. He knew 2 other people in New York who had seen the creature we now refer to as the Rake. It took the 4 of us about 2 solid years of hunting down on the internet and writing letters to come up with a small collection of what we believed to be accounts of the Rake. None of them gave any detail, however. History or follow-up. One journal had entry involving a creature in its first 3 pages and then never mentioned it again. A ship's log explained nothing of the encounter, saying that only we were told to leave by the Rake. That was the last entry log. There was, however, many instances where the creature visit was one of a series of visits with the same person. Multiple people almost all mentioned being spoken to, my daughter included. This led us to wonder if the Rake had visited any of us before our last encounter. I set up a digital recorder near my bed and left it running all night. For 2 weeks. I would tediously scan through the sounds of me rolling around in bed each day when I woke up. By the end of the 2nd week, I was quite used to the occasional sound of sleep while blurring through the recording at 8 times the normal speed. This took about almost an hour every day. On the first day of the 3rd week, I thought I heard something different. What I found was a shrill voice. I knew it was the Rake. I can't listen to it long enough to even begin to transcribe it. I haven't let anyone else listen to it. All I know is that I've heard it before, and now I believe that it spoke when it was sitting in front of my husband. I don't remember hearing anything at the time, but for some reason, the voice on the recorder immediately brings me back to that moment. The thoughts that must have gone through my daughter's head make me very upset. I have not seen the Rake since he ruined my life, but I know that he has been in my room while I slept. I know and fear that one night I will wake up to see him staring right at me. Goodbye.